Psalm 91. Let's start with 5. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in day. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday. All right. Remember, don't lose track of the fact that this is a poem, and much of poetic language is hyperbole, meaning exaggeration for the sake of making a point or effect. Okay, so in verse 5, he continues a series of what I think are hyperboles, beginning in verse 3. For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly disease. Boy, if that was literally true for everyone, for all time, in all places, life would be good. But and it could just be because of my own unrighteousness, but I don't find this to be true in my life. Okay. He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. This is totally symbolic language. His faithful promises are your armor and protection. I talked about that last time. The promises of God are sure. Some are unconditional. Others are quite conditional. Some are made to all people for all of time. Others are not. They're for specific people at a specific time and place. But when God makes a promise, he keeps it. And these promises are your armor and protection. Consider yourself armed, but not in the sense with weaponry, as the sense of with armor. And then it's almost like he's saying, because of this, do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrows that fly in the day. You know, lots of people struggle with this. I don't know whether you do, but there are a lot of times I do. I'm dog tired by bedtime, and I lay down, and my mind just won't shut off. And for me, it's not replaying the blessings and pleasures of the day. It's just spinning on all the crud that happened, all the negative, and this is the one, even more than that, what might happen later. Pardon, excuse me. As a matter of fact, this morning, I woke up, still in bed, and I thought, well, I got time. No. My mind was whirling, and it went out 2 years to a moment that it's ridiculous for me to fixate on, and yet I did. There are a lot of people who have terrors at night, and sometimes they are horrible nightmares. Often, they are anxiety about what might happen. The anxiety rooted in the fear of an unknown future. Me. When the psalmist writes, do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, a couple of things. Number one, it's not a sin if you have those terrors, okay? So there are people who would apply this as, if you got those terrors, well, that's a sin. You got to turn loose of that sin. No, not in my opinion. This is an admonition. Now, it's interesting to me that the psalmist doesn't offer us a pathway to not being afraid of the terrors of the night. It just says, don't be. And the pretext for that, again, goes back to verses 3 and 4. And they are about the presence, concern, and power of God to protect. I do not have a silver bullet for the anxiety that keeps me awake and might be keeping you awake. I don't have it. I do believe, and I see this in my own life, that those anxieties, the longer they persist, the more difficult they are to turn loose of. So one of the issues for not being afraid of the terrors of the night has to do with early recognition when anxiety begins. So that instead of anxiety becoming a captor and holding me hostage, it becomes a signal, a cue, a reminder that when I feel anxious, there's two things that it's really hard to do these two things if you let anxiety go very even, a few moments. The earlier you can recognize it and then do these two things, the more effective these two things will be. First thing, I need to remind myself that I am under the shelter of his wings, God's wings, and his promises are my armor. Okay. Second thing, rehearse the story of when God showed up. And I noticed, I experienced it. Went in my memory. If it's recently, then go back to the recent. But if you got to go back a ways, go back. See, some of the terrors of the night are the result of mental habit. And one of the most, I'll even use a pretty strong word here, destructive mental habits is rehearsing what could happen, the negative, destructive, hurtful that could happen. Okay, that's most anxiety is about that. I'm not a scientist to be able to verify. I would say all, but I don't. I'm just going to say most. And then there are times that we rehearse the story. We retell the story to ourselves of when we have been hurt, when things didn't work, when things ended poorly. Okay, I'm not saying pretend those didn't happen. I'm just saying when you go back to retell yourself a story, what make it a story of God's faithfulness. Because even when things didn't end well, we're assured in Scripture many, many times that God is not finished. He's not looking the other way. He's not, just saying, oh, you got Adam and Eve to blame for this, but life's going to suck, so, wear a helmet. I mean, there are those times, and sometimes that's true. But the point is, what story am I rehearsing? If I am experiencing this kind of anxiety, I can guarantee you that I am telling myself stories I'm retelling stories of negative experiences, unmet expectations, things that hurt me. Happy thoughts won't cure you. I'm not even talking about happy thoughts. I'm just talking about retell yourself the stories of God's faithfulness. Okay? Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. Okay, we got two kinds of things here. The terrors of the night, the anxiety that will, it at least pesters us sometimes, right? Some of us more than others. And the other is arrows that fly in the day. What is that? That to me is the problems that actually happen. The terrors of the night are, those are fears of things that are in an unknown future, in my opinion. The arrows that fly in the day, that's the stuff that actually happens. Don't be afraid of those either. And the same kind of approach is called for with the arrows that fly in the day as the terrors in the night. It comes to this. Remember what I said. What story am I telling myself? Arrows are coming at me, and a lot of times they are actual real problems. For me, the actual real problems are the smaller percentage compared to my fears about the problems. So overcoming fear has, this is a big deal, okay? And I got 2 minutes to try and unpack something that a whole book would struggle to unpack. But I'll just put it in this form. When I am afraid, I have to determine, am I afraid of something real? And in which case, that fear could cue my whole mental and physical system to respond and react to what I fear coming. So the problem, I hate problems. I find myself more able to solve somebody else's problem than my own. And I don't think I'm the only one that does that. But here's the thing. When the arrows fly in the day, those actual real problems coming at me, the most useful thing I can do is to begin by seeking God's wisdom and power and help. And then the second thing is to thank Him for the times that now I'm just speaking autobiographically, for the times that He gave me that wisdom to solve the problem. And then there are other times when He just solved it. He just intervened and took care of the problem. And then step up with confidence in Him and address the arrow that flies in the day. There's only one place, well, yeah, there's really just one place where everybody there is done with problems. There are no problems. And that would be the cemetery. And frankly, some of the souls that were attached to the bodies that are buried in that cemetery, they because of the choices they made in their life, they may now be having unsolvable problems in hell, and others will be in heaven, where if problem solving is a part of that experience, they're going to have the full, complete, sensate awareness of the presence of God. All right, Arrows fly in the day and terrors at night, but we don't have to be held hostage by them. See you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.